Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, battles between Christian farmers and Fulani herdsmen leave hundreds dead in Nigeria. The fatal clashes are rooted in a long-running standoff between the communities. Well, staying with Nigeria, the country's forced to cut oil production by a quarter after a Shell pipeline is damaged. The spill caused has been described as massive. The oil giant, though, says it's not responsible because militants sabotaged the line. And Gabon's president is bidding to prolong his family's almost half-a-century leadership of the country. Ali Bongo's candidacy in upcoming elections is controversial, though. Some of his critics say that he wasn't born Gabonese and therefore should be disqualified. Well, first, the deaths of hundreds of people in a week of fighting between Christian farmers and Muslim Fulani herdsmen in Nigeria has prompted President Muhammadu Buhari to launch an investigation. Men from the clashing communities attacked each other with guns and machetes in Benue State. Now, it's in the country's middle belt, where the mainly Christian south meets the predominantly Muslim north. Fulani nomads have long complained of being treated as second-class citizens. Chika Odua tells us more.
What happened is that the Fulanis, which is an ethnic group that comes from the northern part of Nigeria, they are traditionally cattle herders. They rear cattle. And because of the changing climate, whenever it gets dry in Nigeria, they are forced to come further south where the climate is a bit more humid and where you can still find green grass so that their cattle can raise. So what's happening is that these cattle herders are actually encroaching on farmlands that are obviously owned by farmers. This causes a lot of conflict. So last week we did see that hundreds of people were killed in 4 communities in the Nigerian Middle Belt area.
So Chika, Muhammadu Buhari has made security a priority in Nigeria. We heard today, Monday, that he's going to be looking more deeply into those clashes between those 2 communities. But with all the focus on Boko Haram that we've seen since he came into power, does that risk ever overshadowing other serious tensions like those that we're seeing in Nigeria's Middle Belt?
Definitely. I would say that the focus in terms of security for Nigeria has been on Boko Haram. That's really why Buhari was able to come into power in 2015 because of his promises to wipe out Boko Haram. But the issue of the Fulani herdsmen and the farmers, it's long-standing. And, you know, the president, Buhari, he is Fulani. He comes from that ethnic group. So he has some understanding of this conflict. He owns cattle himself. And so for these Fulani's cattle, that's their livelihood. That's their currency. So it's very important to them. But we're going to keep seeing this escalating as long as we keep seeing climate change in Nigeria.
Chika Odua there for us in Abuja. Well, Nigeria is cutting 24,000 ghost workers from the national payroll. The Finance Ministry expects that to save almost $12 million a month. So far, it's reckoned that at least 7.5% of government salaries are so far being paid to people who don't exist or to civil servants receiving more than one wage from different ministries. Elsewhere in the country's anti-corruption drive, Nigeria's former Interior Minister, Abba Moro, was charged with fraud and money laundering on Monday. In 2014, a fatal stampede erupted after tens of thousands of people turned up to an employment call. Later, millions of dollars in job seekers' application fees disappeared. Moro's denied defrauding the unemployed. While staying with Nigeria, the country has been forced to cut oil production by a quarter, 25%, after a Shell pipeline was damaged in Delta State. Well, France 24 gained exclusive access to communities affected by the massive spill. Members of an unknown militant group called the Niger Delta Avengers say that they blew up the pipeline on the 14th of February. Shell says that it's not responsible for the cleanup. Well, the oil giant has a long history of causing environmental damage in Nigeria, leading to the rise of armed groups in the Niger Delta. Our correspondent sent us this report from the state.
Communities on the Forcados River live from fishing. But fishermen have noticed a dramatic drop in their catches in recent days. Ghanaman Azumo says there is a large amount of oil in the river and nearby coastline.
What I noticed in the water, we have been going to sea. After some time, we discovered there is a crude oil moving around the coast. So from there, you can see When we go, there is no catch. Now we decide to stop going to sea.
The economic impact of this ecological disaster is being felt by most people in this community. Mothers say they struggle to feed their children because fish yields have fallen.
It's the oil, shell oil, causing this problem here now. We are in the hungry now. Look at our children now. Don't have money to pay school fees now because there is no fish to buy, to sell. Look at the nets. Do you see the net?
Shell oil installations are tightly secured in this region. But behind the barbed wire, efforts are underway to repair the damage to the Trans-Forcados pipeline that transports oil to the capital Abuja, to Lagos and to West Africa.
We are trying to communicate,
but environmentalists are calling on Shell Oil to take full responsibility for the clean-up operation.
It's a massive scale, and that is why it has generated some kind of controversy, whether it is a sabotage or whether it's a normal spill. So this is a spill that has affected a lot of communities. Not just this community, a lot of communities, even down to communities in Bayelsa State.
As so often in this region, the people have no choice but to wait for the courts to decide if Shell Oil or the government should take responsibility for this latest environmental disaster.
Ugandan rebels have once again been blamed for a fatal raid on civilians in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Suspected ADF militia hit villages near the region of Beni, which has repeatedly suffered similar attacks. Our Thomas Nicolin tells us more.
The attacks took place in 3 different villages, 50 kilometers from Beni. It all happened between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. Rebels from the Allied Democratic Forces, the ADF, are believed to be behind this attack. The UN says this Islamist Ugandan group has been operating in the region since the mid-1990s. The ADF are believed to be responsible for the death of 500 civilians since October 2014, but nothing is never as simple as it seems in DR Congo, and some survivors from last night's attacks claimed that the attackers were speaking Kinyarwandan, which could indicate that the attackers were part of the Rwandan FDLR. But one thing is for certain though, 13 people were killed last night, all civilians, all with bladed weapons, and we just learned that 4 more bodies had just been found. This attack took place not even a week after UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon was in Kinshasa and talked about the importance of maintaining peace in the east of DR Congo.
Thomas Nicolin there for us in Kinshasa. Well, Gabon's president has announced his candidacy in this summer's elections. In power since 2009, Ali Bongo has vowed to battle inequality. But his critics are sceptical, as the country's been run by his family for almost half a century.
Ali Bongo chose to announce his candidacy near the city of Port-Gentil. That's where the news of his victory in 2009 sparked riots. He's the son of Omar Bongo, who ruled Gabon for 42 years. Ali Bongo promised to fight against unwarranted privilege. He made his announcement on a bridge surrounded by workers.
I will be a candidate in this year's presidential election. I will guarantee a better future for our youth. I will provide better education and training for the youth, adapted to our development.
Ali Bongo's announcement angered Gabon's opposition leaders.
We see this as a new provocation. He risks angering the people of Gabon, who are already facing so many problems, politically, economically, and social problems. Enough is enough.
It's a non-event. We all knew he would force his way through, and that's what he's done. The question now is, which birth certificate will he present?
The opposition claim Bongo is an adopted child from Nigeria and cannot be a candidate. On Monday, a court in France dismissed a case alleging his certificate was a forgery. But the issue is likely to be at the heart of this year's campaign.
Well, and finally, South Africans really don't give up on fruit easily. The protected marula is a favourite snack for elephants, but locals also use it to make beer. And sick of sharing, Conservationists at the Jijani Nature Reserve are hanging beehives from marula trees to keep the elephants away. Apparently, the big beasts are big babies when it comes to the sound of a buzzing swarm. So clearly, they've been warned. I had to. Don't judge me. Well, that is, though, we're going to have to leave Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us. And please do so again if you can. Take care.